When We Were Young 2024 all album plays, front to back, 57 records in total. And the Emo Social Club is listening to all of them, ones we know and ones we do not. On this episode, we are reviewing Nada Surf's Let Go. Lizzie, before we get into our review on this, let us know a little bit about Nada Surf, Let Go, this band that people may or may not know.
Yeah, so Let Go is Nada Surf's third album and was released on Barsuk Records on September 17th, 2002 in Europe and was later released in February of 2003 here in the US. This band, they had a lot of their songs placed into TV shows. The track Blonde on Blonde was featured on Summer Storm. Inside of Love was featured in a How I Met Your Mother episode.
Yep, I remember that. The band just has a very storied history because they've been around for a long time and have done a lot of stuff. So it's about this record is very interesting because they had a major single that was really popular called Popular off of their previous record. So I was like, okay, so the record you're doing is not the record that you were most well known for. But this, much like Pretty Girls Make Graves, feels like a band that should be on the more OG emo indie festival that was also announced since When We Were Young was announced. Mm-hmm. And it does feel like there's a weird indie emo crossover here. There's a lot of stuff that I found that was related to Death Cab for Cutie and Ben Gibbard working with Nada Surf, not necessarily on this record, but in the future from this record. This is that crossover of indie emo that we always throw, Postal Service and Death Cab into. And it does feel like this is maybe not the festival for them, but I am not the one booking it. I am just the one going to it.
Yeah, when I heard this, I immediately was like, this should be the Best Friends Forever Festival, and that's okay, because there's a time and place for it, so it'll be interesting to see how people at When We Were Young Fest react to it.
We are going to tell you what we think about this record, but before we do, make sure to subscribe. We have the button right there. It's the subscribe button. It's right next to the like button. It's right next to the description, where we have a playlist of all of the album reviews that we have done so far, and it will house all of the future reviews we do. So if you subscribe and you check out that playlist, you'll be able to just listen to our talks about all of the songs. If you came here for Nada Surf and this is the only one you've heard so far, interesting and thank you. Here are my thoughts on Let Go by Nada Surf. I mean, I was in high school in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003. This was prime era of popular music for me to be learning and bringing it in. There's a little bit of a Mandela effect here because I 100% thought that this band was featured on the Garden State soundtrack. And they are not at all.
What was the other band that was?
The Shins. I was apparently confusing this band with the Shins. And I thought going into this, it's going to be that Garden State, as you would always say, Tumblr era, identifying and glorifying and idealizing that indie sleaze or that indie dream pop era of the early 2000s. So I kind of thought that going into this. I had never really heard anything by Nada Surf besides Inside of Love, which I'd heard in How I Met Your Mother and other TV placements, and just kind of had been around, and maybe it came up on shuffle once or twice. But this is not a band that I would ever think to check out. It's not really my vibe. It was not a band that I wanted to check out, and they came out. So never thought I'd be here today, but here I am today. I did not hate this record. You thought I was going to be all shitty about this. I actually kind of liked it. There's a lot of good songwriting on this. I know that there are a lot of softer songs, but the guitar-driven ones I really did kind of like. The ones that are more rocky. The ones that are more soft, even the opener, Blizzard of 77, I'm like, oh boy, if the whole record sounds like this, I'm going to be real fucking bored. But it didn't. It did not sound like that the whole way through. So I did think there was way too many quiet tracks. None of those stood out for me. I'm not going to revisit those. When there's one ballad or acoustic track, I tend to listen to that song more versus an album that has a bunch. So a lot of the other emo, more scene records, it's here's the one ballad, mm-hmm. right? That one's fine to me because it's different than everything else that I've just heard on the record. Having too many of those kind of makes me bored. And I'm I don't care about it. So the reason I liked this is because it was not all that I was expecting it to be. There's definitely some good early 2000s indie tracks here. Brought me back to that nostalgia of that early high school for me when I was getting into a lot more of bands that were kind of like this before I got into things like The Used and My Chem and started going that path. So overall, not not that negative on this. These are my top tracks from Nada Surf's Let Go. My first one is Killian's Red, which is like the longest song on the record. This is very interesting because I usually don't go for like long, drawn out, slower songs. But listening to this one, it felt very haunting, and it felt like it was very story driven. I found that a lot of like the Nada Surf songs are like, there's like a story that he's just like kind of saying like, I did this, then I did this, then I did this, then I did this, is like a lot of the lyrics. And some songs, like Fruit Fly, really stood out for me like that. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, this is weird lyricism for me compared to a lot of the stuff I listen to. But on Killian's Red, I'm like, this is actually just like nice storytelling. It gives me a sense of like the room that he's in and the space that he's in, like mentally, and like I'm sort of like putting myself in that vibe. Just really enjoyed it. It was like, it didn't bore me. It kept me going. It kept me like motivated to hear the whole song. I didn't have an interest in skipping it. I'm like, ooh, let's like hear what happens next. Let's hear what goes on in the rest of the song. So very surprised that I liked the 6.5 minute song. The Way You Wear Your Head, coming right after that with like a little bit more like an upbeat like rocker song. The Ripper songs on this record are pretty good. Like the more guitar driven stuff I was really into, and this was one of the ones that like of those that stood out to me specifically. I think it's like of that time of like the early 2000s of that like more indie scene, jamming songs with more guitar driven. Like obviously a lot of the acoustic songs on this are guitar driven, but I'm like, I'd rather hear like the guitar front and forward than just hearing like somebody who is singing, good lyrics over an acoustic guitar forever. Time and place, one thing and then another thing and then another thing. Don't need it all the time. Rippers, I want all the time. I want all of those all of the time. Rippers are always good. Why not more rippers in general? The third one was probably my favorite on the record, was Treading Water near the end of the record. This one like just kind of moved in between like more soft parts, more melodic, more singing parts for like the chorus, and then like had like ripper verses and more guitar driven stuff. I think that what I found in this was like when they do the things that they are clearly the best at, they're doing them in a way that does sound good to me. Nada Surf being a band that I'm like, you're gonna make more acoustic songs. So hearing this like song that goes between like soft and loud parts, which is not something that we normally would hear or not expect to hear from a band like this, I was just excited by that, and I really enjoyed Treading Water. My least favorite track from Let Go by Nada Surf, I guess it's only because the song's in French, but La Pour Ça, it's only that. But like we were saying, this band had a bigger following in Europe. It does seem to me that this person can sing in French, so clearly speaking in French very naturally. Mm-hmm. So I would assume this is just for an audience that isn't me, very specifically. The song itself was real fucking slow. It was really like down tempo and down energy. All of the other songs that are higher energy and made me feel more like, oh yeah, like I'm nodding my head and I'm enjoying this. This one was like, okay, this is exactly what I thought you'd be. Like you're this art house, coffee shop, acoustic band singing in French, and I'm like, let's move on. It just stuck out as like a lot less interesting. There's obviously more acoustic ones on this. Blizzard of 77 opening the record, I thought, okay, we are not starting off strong with that, but I think because the lyrics in that one I could understand and like kind of appreciated hearing it in English, I guess, is like that's the only reason why I wouldn't pick that as my least favorite and would just pick the one that's in French, and I don't speak French.
These are my thoughts on Let Go by Nada Surf. So when I first looked this up on Spotify, I was going to see how long it was because some of the batches that we have listened to, it's shorter or sometimes it's longer. And I'm like, oh my God, because I've heard of Nada Surf. I just never listened to them. So when I saw that the first track was 4 minutes and 30 seconds long, I said, oh, yikes. All right, homie, we're in it. We were definitely in it. When I heard the opening track of Blizzard, I was not hopeful at all. I said, uh-oh, we're in danger zone here. I had a general vibe for what it was. It's very early 2000s, almost borderlining at sometimes mom rock, but still trying to hold its integrity as being an OG emo indie band. For the sound and of the time, I couldn't fault them for it. I definitely think that this should have been on a completely different festival. Wholeheartedly. Yep. Or even if you put it on like a punk or alternative festival, you probably have a handful of other bands that are going to make sense that go in that vein. I want to know why almost every single song is almost exactly 4 minutes and 30 seconds long. Like there has to be a reason for this. Because they were so long, they all just kind of blended together for me until like some of them like stood out or some of them were just so wildly different. I was like, what am I listening to? Did this album end and I'm in another weird, like, Not a Surf radio type of thing, then I would see it has an end. We're not actually halfway through it at all. I don't listen to a lot of really slow music. I love indie music and I love indie sleaze and like indie punk. So that's more in my vein, like crunchy guitars and things and like dancey stuff and things of that nature. This is stuff that I would listen to if I wanted to take a little nap because I was feeling really eepy. So that's originally my thoughts. Went in pretty blind and then it is what it is for me. It's something that if I just needed to get stuff done and I just ended up throwing it on, I'd be like, okay. And then I just move on with my life and probably never ever think about it again. My top 3 from Let Go by Not a Surf. I did really like Fruit Fly because the literal lyrics were really enjoyable. And I think it kind of separated it from this kind of art house type of vibe. It's a little bit more boisterous. And I really like how the wahs with the guitars start when it ends. It just feels a lot more complex than their other songs where I feel they're really saying we can go as long as we want. And it's like, yeah, you can, but you don't really need to. And the other one I did like was High Speed Soul. This was not sleepy at all. Yes. I was awakened. It really gave me this vibe of like the Strokes and kind of pinnacle indie sleaze movement, and I really enjoyed that. They have kind of like the same tempo of the instrumentals throughout, but it kept me awake. It kept me ready to go. And the other one I did like was also Treading Water. Much more upbeat. I really felt like this was a more flirty and fun type of song that really would be one of those summer indie playlist staples. My least favorite from Not a Surf's Let Go was the French song.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I literally stopped what I was doing. I went over to my computer and I said, oh, what is this? And then I stopped and I sat with it and I said, is this guy singing in French? Honestly, I need to skip this. I can't deal with this. That was my main one that I didn't really like. I also didn't like Blonde on Blonde. It was just so repetitive that it became very annoying. And I didn't really find much in it. But obviously that had also been placed in a lot of TV and commercials too. So I understand probably why it had more mainstream success because it has a lot of easy repetition throughout it. Otherwise, I had like nothing else I was like really upset about or really generally disliked. It's just something that you put on and you zone out to, really. It's nothing outrageously like, oh my God, I need to personally listen to it.
Yeah, it's just not our genre. When we were thinking of, a My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy Festival, you didn't expect to see Not a Surf on it. So, I mean, it's hard to review that and say like, this is bad. It's just like, no, this isn't for me. This isn't the genre. I wouldn't critique it against like pop punk or emo bands.
Oh no!
So it's like, then I shouldn't critique it again. Like, why would I listen to this when I like the Used? I think
the only band you could probably make an attempt because of like how close they are would be Jimmy Eat World, but like early Jimmy Eat World because Jimmy Eat World started in that camp and it's still pretty much in that same camp, just not as indie.
Yeah.
So I think that would be the only like main comparison you could probably make for Not a Surf.
That was our thoughts. That was the thoughts we had on Not a Surf. We are not the only ones surfing the Not a waves. We went to the internet. We found reviews from Amazon. We found reviews from critics, and we're going to give you what they said so that we don't think that we're just talking out of our asses about what we liked or did not like about Not a Surf's Let Go. This is a review by Paul J. Mazzoni. 4 stars. Hidden Gem. 2003. Let's face it, if you mention Not a Surf to someone, they are either going to bring up the song Popular or say, Not a who? But you won't find a more consistently good pop album by a group with Nada in the name. Or any group for that matter. Cannot think of a second band with Nada in the name. This band is definitely evolving in the right direction. The vocals on several songs are very reminiscent of Semisonic's Dan Wilson, and several songs like High Speed Soul and The Rockin' The Way You Wear Your Head sound like they could easily fit on an early Semisonic album. But what separates Not a Surf are great songs like Blizzard of 77 and Inside of Love. And unlike most bands, Not a Surf saves one of the best for last with Treading Water, which shifts from straight rock to more introspective melancholy pop. There are quite a number of ballads on the album that deserve close attention, but the band mixes them up with more upbeat stuff so that there is never a dull moment. A fine effort that is not to be missed. Kind of how I feel about it, just with less love for the ballads.
Yeah.
This one is by Tony Moore, 1 star. Title is Looks Like Not a Surf Aren't As Good Now They Aren't Popular. This is from 2004. I was looking up the term power pop in the dictionary the other day, and I got the following definition. Bland, derivative, lazy, uninspired music. I had to agree with the definition, at least after hearing Nada Surf. Nada Surf, for those of you who are fool and don't know, had this one really big hit popular that was funny, witty, and one of the few good songs on the albums. But the indie kids, always looking for something cool to latch onto, jumped on the Nada Surf bandwagon to look superior to their peers who gave up on the band long ago. This isn't anything you haven't already heard before. Basically, they take Weezer and remove any of the intensity and emotion that comes along with it. Let Go does manage to have one good song, though, Killian's Red. It stands out amongst the wasteland of the rest of the album. It'd be nice to see Nada Surf take a smart, witty approach to their music as shown in the song Popular, but then stay far, far away from the band.
Wow. All right. That was...
I don't know why people write reviews sometimes.
You could just put 1 star and then just go away.
Yep.
You don't need to add context to it all
But
the
I
time.
had to read it.
All right, here's some critical reviews by critics. So we're going to start with from Rolling Stone by Rob Sheffield, 4 out of 5 stars. Nada Surf enjoyed a buzz-bin moment in 1996 with the high school satire Popular, and while the extremely groovy guitar ripples stuck in your head long after the joke was over, it wasn't the kind of hit that suggests a long-term career, as Harvey Danger or the primitive radio gods would be happy to explain to you. The New York guitar rock trio hit the indie trail to earn its cred the hard way, and after the Weezer-like introspection of 2000's startlingly great The Proximity Effect, Nada Surf get it all together on Let Go, the band's best by a mile. Let Go is an excellent rainy afternoon album full of gentle and melancholic beauty which echoes of love and the Beach Boys. In Blizzard of 77, Blonde on Blonde, and The Way You Wear Your Head, Nada Surf show enough smarts and panache to leave most of their 90s rock peers eating hot dust. This other one I sent to Brian and I said, I need to read this so desperately. And I will be reading you the entire thing because it is all too good to not. This is a Pitchfork review of Nada Surf's Let Go by Rob Mitchum, January 22nd, 2003, 3.8 out of 10. All right, let's just get this out of the way right up front real fast. And then they put the quick, I'm head of the class, I'm popular, I'm quarterback, I'm popular, the little chorus of their most recognizable song. Phew, that felt good, didn't it? Just takes you right back like any good one-hit wonder should. And remember how after the Kennedys, rave, and MTV Beach House success of that song, Nada Surf did the graceful thing by fading quietly into the obscurity and K-Tel royalties? That was really cool of them. They did fade quietly into obscurity, right? Hell no, like the equally mystifying continued existence of their pan-flash peers, Super Drag, Nada Surf insists upon fading away rather than burning out. So now they're dropping down to the minor leagues and trying to ignore showgoers, wise-ass hecklers as they tour America's low-overhead venues. If you're anything like me, there's a little voice inside of you saying, dude, weird, they're still around. Shouldn't they be headlining the John Deere alternative rock stage at the State Fair by now? Could it be there's something worthwhile about this band to have so long outlived their original 15 minutes? Well, that's why I get paid the big bucks, folks. To tell all y'all not to listen to that bastardly little voice who never did you no good anyhow. Let's Go's only plausible use is to forcibly expose us to mid-90s alt-rock in the context of today so that we might come to grips with how damn crappy it sounds. Of course, the very same effect can be achieved by simply dusting off that Buffalo Tom CD the record stores passed on 60 or 70 times and tossing it into the old 6-disc, a rather sad fact for the boys of Nada Surf and proof positive of this album's dollar bin destiny. Somewhat like a defrosted woolly mammoth from 1995.
What the fuck does writing mean anymore? What
Word
write?
salad.
Why write? You just make...
Nada Surf embodies all the internet influences of the day, drawing their jangle pop inspiration from, let's say, the DBs and the Replacements. That'll suffice. All well and good, but the band also carries with it the era's failings like a parasite. Crimes that might have been forgivable when we were sorta excited about Matt's Disciples popping up on the radio, but which come off as just sad nowadays, and just sad is in capitals. Now we're gonna break down said crimes in bullet points here. Building a chorus around the phrase, I want to know what it's like on the inside of love, in the at least aptly titled Inside of Love. Hijacking a classic album's mystique in lieu of creating one's own poetic imagery, as with the protagonist listening to Blonde on Blonde and the again credibly titled Blonde on Blonde. Hey guys, is it weird to name your songs the names of lyrics that you put into it?
This is an emo festival, so yes, it is weird.
Just a simple premise of a song called Neither Heaven Nor Space, and guess what it's about? Singing a song entirely in French, although it's entirely possible that inhabitants of France make up a large part of Nada Surf's current fan base, somehow finding the time to squeeze the trio into their omnipresent All Destiny's Child and Shaggy radio formats. But it would take an entirely hapless band to go an entire album without stumbling into a few sparks, and Nada Surf find limited success in the purity harmonies of Blizzard of 77 and in the continent of Rakush's Treading Water. Too bad these and the other 10 mid-tempo tunes on Let Go are gleefully shined into harmless linoleum by the mixing board of Bryce Super Sheens Goggin, the only man who can lay claim to ruining albums by both pavement and fish. Perhaps the only thing I can't give Nada Surf the old kick while down for is the rather unfortunate sharing of album titles with teen of the moment Avril Lavigne. And that's only because I haven't got it in me to waste further time smacking down these clearly well-meaning saps. I'll admit, though, if forced to defend one of the two LPs to save my life, I'd pick Little Miss Wife Beater without a second thought.
Okay.
No, I'm afraid Nada Surf won't be regaining any of their past yuck popularity on these shores with Let Go, and their fellow forgotten Dig Anyone might want to heed their warning and stay retired.
All right. Well, you can just write anything on the internet, huh?
And get paid for it if you're lucky enough.
Yeah, Pitchfork. Great job. That's what we thought. That's what the internet thought. But we have one last question to answer. Should you see Nada Surf's Let Go at When We Were Young 2024? No. Well,
Nada.
Yeah, like you could. This seems like it's like the record for like your 40-year-old dad who really liked this band to go and listen to. Like oh, I'll send him over there. I could see this being opposite like My Chem or Fall Out Boy. So it's like you're gonna hear this record because it's like if you're into this, you're probably not going to want to watch the Black Parade. You're not going to want to watch Fall Out Boy play a set. So like you'll go watch Nada Surf instead. I could see that being like the thought process here, which means that like there's no way that this band is going to be like the only thing playing and there's going to be no other band that I want to see at the same time. I don't have nostalgia for it. I didn't mind it. If a song comes up in the future for me, I'm not going to be mad about it, but I'm probably not going to search this out much in the future. This just isn't a genre that I care about. It's not emo. It's not the scene that like this is. So yeah, probably not for me.
Yeah, it's also not for me either. I think it's if it was say at Riot Fest and it was playing one of the stages where you take a little nap in the corner, I'm down for that. That is the vibe that this gives me personally. But it is something that, you know, if you are going with your parents or you're a child and you're bringing your dad, your mom with you, and you're like, hey, go over there, they'll have a good time.
Daycare.
The Warped Tour Daycare?
Warped Tour Daycare.
Wow, I love Daddy Cake at Daycare, the movie.
So that's where we'll be. Not there. But we wish you the best, Nada Surf. And we wish, all the Nada Surf fans that are going to When We Were Young the best of times. But what do you think? Were we right? Were we wrong? Did you like this record? Are you wishing they were also playing the OG Emo Fest instead? Let us know in the comments. Let us know by liking. Let us know by subscribing, I guess. You could do that too. Just all the ways to let us know. Until then, until When We Were Young, until Nada Surf, until we let go, we'll see you there.
See, it's okay to do it, Brian.